everybody, welcome back to Spruverse, my scale model universe. People of Earth, welcome to a brand new build. And I am pretty excited about this build. I thought about it for the longest time, wasn't sure I wanted to dive in, but then finally said, you know what, I'm going for it. And for a whole bunch of reasons that I'll explain as we go along. But we are going to be building the 1/72 scale space shuttle. This is the 40th anniversary kit that we're going to be building. It is from Revell. It says it's level 5, which, you know, is pretty concerning. Pretty concerning to me, considering that I know that there is some definite skill involved. And now what's curious is not because it's got 1,000 parts, but because to get it right takes a little bit of skill. So I'm pushing the envelope here, going out on a limb and thinking to myself, I want to tackle this. Now, I have very specific goals in mind here because this isn't the first space shuttle that's ever been built, and there's a lot of more talented model builders than me out there that have tackled it. But I've learned an awful lot from them, and I'm going to take some of those tips and tricks and I'm going to try and bring them into my model, because that's another reason why the YouTube channels are so amazing. This community is so gracious and it's so giving, and anytime anybody puts themselves on camera and wants to show you their work or show you how they do something, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, you're learning something. At least I am. And I've always learned in my career and in life that, you know, there's no black and white to anything. There's shades of gray. And what's interesting is as you go along in life, you learn how to improve your skills and who you are as a person by sometimes making mistakes and remembering that that's not a good way to do something, or there's a better way to do something. So anyway, we are here, and I want to build a likeness of the Space Shuttle Discovery that is now on display at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. It's at the center out by Dallas Airport, not the downtown center that is still closed for renovation. And I was recently there with my dear friend Wayne Green of World of Wayne, and we had a blast. We got an opportunity to really dive into that museum and spent quite a bit of time there. But one of the things that struck me while I was there was that that space shuttle is pretty awesome. And given that I'm somebody who loves to weather things and age things, I thought that's what I want to do. When I tackle my space shuttle, I want it to look exactly like it looks parked now at the Smithsonian, warts and all. So that's what I'm tackling. And I want to go through in this part one, I want to go through what we've got, what we're going to tackle, and just a couple of things that I plan to do. Now, before we get started, I think it would be a lot of fun to kind of talk about the fact that it's interesting. There's not a lot of aftermarket parts. There are some. There's not a lot. There's definitely decals, and there's definitely some other things like the forward reaction controls on the nose, and definitely engine bells. But there's no photo etch that I can find. And the decals, you know, I don't know. We'll talk about it, and we'll talk about our plan for this. But I'm purely building it as it's parked. Now, this particular shuttle has its bay doors closed. They're not open. In Houston, I believe Atlantis does have its bay doors open, and it's on an angle so that you can see inside, which is pretty cool. But this particular shuttle is not. But you can walk under it, almost. And that is amazing, the one at the Smithsonian. And that's the one that I'm going to try and emulate. Now, there are a whole bunch of different questions that come up, and I've been doing as much research as I possibly can. the earlier shuttles used a certain kind of tile that was white. The later shuttles went to a black tile, and so configurations were changed. But the one uniform fact is that when you take a really hard look at the exterior surface of this thing, it's a little clunky. It's not, it's not this sleek, smooth thing. It's a little clunky. And I'll talk about that as we go along. But anyway, let's dive in. And the first thing I want to do is I want to introduce you to a couple of my my research pieces that I'm going to also be using to help me with my paint and detail. The first one I want to introduce you to is this. Now don't. Before you start rolling your eyes and going, okay, we're build a space shuttle for dummies. I know, but frankly, it's not easy to find illustrations of the mechanics of things the way I wanted to look at them. And so this particular book does have what I was looking for. And what I mean by that is when you dive in to this, what has been very helpful to me is a couple of these diagrams in the back here. I'm gonna, of course, I didn't have the page tagged, so I apologize for that, but I will find it very quickly here. And it is fun to go through this. Oh, can I stop for a second and randomly just some of these illustrations, pretty cool. But anyway, what I wanted to show you was some of the mechanics of how the undercarriage worked. Here it is. So the Discovery is parked. And what I wanted to be able to do is be able to show some of that undercarriage detail. So we're going to be doing that, and it's very, very helpful. So I've gotten an awful lot of information about that, and I realize that this model is woefully short on detail when it comes to things like that. So I wanted to add some detail to it, and I am. The second research book that I wanted to share with you is this thing of beauty here. It weighs a freaking ton, a ton. And it is the brainchild of Benedict, here he is, Benedict Redgrove. It's called NASA Past and Present Dreams of the Future. And let me tell you, when I tell you, if you ever get a chance to get your hands on this book, you will be drooling. I have not been able to take my eyes off it for days. I just can't get enough of it. The photographs in here are ridiculous, and they're going to be incredibly helpful when it comes to all my detail work. So I'm pretty excited about that. So let me quickly go to the front here, because I just want to share a couple of them. Now, I don't know how much justice is going to be done with the lighting in the studio, but my goodness, this is Atlantis, and holy cow, I mean, the detail here is extraordinary. So we're just going to be able to really dive in on some of the details. Look at this. Look at this. These 2 pages of extreme close-ups of the reaction control system on the nose of this thing. You've got yellowing here from sulfur burns. You can see this gasket, this rope gasket that clearly is asbestos, and all of the different burning and color and discoloration. You can see the tiny drain holes up close here to let water out of these tiles. You can see the rivet attachments. I mean, it is just ridiculous. Even some rust here in some of the smaller ones. But this is what I wanted to show you is, if you notice really closely, not one of these tiles is perfectly flat. They bump up to the best of their ability, but they've all got these cracks. Now, clearly, there was a secondary skin to prevent the 3,000 degrees of heat getting through and destroying this thing. But clearly, it's not difficult to do because if we remember, tragically, we lost a shuttle on re-entry for that exact reason. Tiles coming off of this thing and heat getting through the secondary piece, and it was toast in seconds. An awful tragedy. But anyway, I wanted to show you here. Now, here's another example of something that I find absolutely fascinating. This is what we're referring to as the blanket. It is panels that were used to augment where the tile didn't go down. They laid down these heat shield panels, and they appear to look like fabric. They appear to be waffled in nature, and they're all kinds of geometric shapes and sizes, almost as if, you know, you brought all the material together and you got on this machine and you tried to figure out the right mosaic to make sure that it all fit perfectly. Now, the blankets themselves do fit flush with the tiles, but they're all over the map in terms of how they're laid down. There's the sizing and the distribution of them it appears to be totally random to me. So that's fascinating. Anyway, we've also got wonderful details here of all the tiles and how they fit around the windows. So we're going to be paying an awful lot of attention to that. The other thing here, which I find fascinating, here's the rear of this thing. And one of the things you'll notice immediately here is the kind of haphazard nature of it. Now, one of the details that I do find fascinating is these engine bells. Let me show you here. I'm sorry. Come on, get it right. Oh, stupid me. These engine bells are fascinating because this tube system provided cooling for the heat, the fuel, and so it was a fascinating combination of coolant and fuel that caused this thing to create the reaction that allowed the burning of the engine fuel that made this thing fly. Extraordinary. So that's one thing that I really want you to pay attention to, because we're going to get into detail on that. The other thing is not a great picture here, but I want you to pay attention to these reaction thruster cones in the rear here, because I want to talk about those. And also notice this lip around this rear cone. Very important. The other thing I also want to take sort of point out here, let me see if I can get it in. Let me go back to B and show you. Here it is. This is known as the umbilical connection port, okay? And it's for plugging in all kinds of things for fuel and everything else. It's flush to the actual shuttle itself. Notice these rivets here around these smaller panels, and notice all of the writing on these blankets and how they collide with the tiles. The whole thing is fascinating, and it goes on and on. Look at this. I am just going to have a blast because I can get close. Again, look at this detail. These are cylinders. They are not cones. But the actual kit, believe it or not, provides you. Let me grab my tweezers and show you what you get. This is the part that they give you to put in there. They must have pulled this from. I don't know. Guys, do we have any small funnels? Yeah, I think so. Okay, put those in the kit, because this is what you get, is this. It's a cone. It's a cone. They were not cones. They were cylinders. They were cylinders. So what I've done is you know, I have actually added some sprue, which I will clean up, but you can see I have made them cylinders. So I'm trying to be as accurate as I can as well. Now, when I say accurate, I am using that term incredibly loosely because I am going to try my darndest to make this look as representative of what I saw in the Smithsonian. And I've taken plenty of personal photos, so I can get pretty close. But that's what we're going for here. So anyway, I could go on and on and on. I do want to show you this photo of the tiles because holy cow. And you can see where they put brand new ones in. I don't know how good it is in this light, but they are black compared to the soot and the directional soot. So we're going to be able to use a lot of oils and stuff like that. Look at this. Look at this photo. Extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. And of course the tail, and it goes on and on and on. So great research material. I've got my Bible, and I've got my Haynes Space Shuttle Owner's Manual. No laughing at the back. And I've got, of course, my trusty, well, I suppose you would call these instructions. Or how to build this thing. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, let me put this over here real quick and carry on. Because what I wanted to do now is I wanted to show you the model. Here it is. Now I have, for the interest of time, I have I've taped it together, and I think you'll agree that it's pretty big. You know, so we're going to be able to do a lot with it. You know, if it's any smaller, you're going to lose so much detail. So this is a size that, you know, I'm happy with. Now, having said that, I'm happy with it. Mrs. Spruverse has to give me permission to park this somewhere. Hopefully it'll fit on the shelf, but you know, when it's up on its wheels, it's a big boy. Real estate is, it's thin. It's a fight. But anyway, I digress. So here's the kit, and I've taped it together, and there's a bunch of things I want to kind of show you and share with you. The curious thing about it is the Revell kit. Now I don't know very much about the monogram kit. I have seen a build of it. Primed Models. If you know his channel, he's a great guy, and his builds are amazing. He's super talented, and he took a crack at this. And Duty Cats, also a really interesting character. Sadly, I don't think he's posting videos anymore, or at least I don't see them. It's been a while, but I do subscribe to both of those channels and got an awful lot of insight from both of them. But the Revell kit does have, as you can see, the paneling burned into it, or I should say molded into it. Now, this could be good news and it could be bad news. I don't know. We're going to sort of go through all of that together. As I slide down to the nose, you can see here that we're going to talk about these windows and try to get a sense of how accurate they are. Do they have to be scaled down a little bit? I don't think so. I think they may have cleaned that up and fixed it. But you can see the reaction control plate I've not put in, and I'll explain why in just a minute. And then if I can gingerly turn this over and not embarrass myself, I'm going to try. Hang on. You know what? I shouldn't be trying like that. I should be trying like that. Okay. So forgive me if this all falls apart, but I'm going to gingerly turn it over. And as I turn it over, you can see that I've got a really interesting kind of pattern that's already burned in here that can give me direction. Umbilical cord plates are in, so that's good. We just have to work on those. I need to put the wheels down in it, and that'll be fine. And then before I lose this thing completely, the only other thing I wanted to share with you, if I can get up close here, and I can, you can see along this line right here, that is the connection point for the shuttle bay doors where they open. And you can see we've got a seam line along the top here that we have to deal with, and we have to also create hinge points. Now I'm probably going to have to build those hinge points with some 010 sheet styrene, which is fine, and they'll be black. They are a couple of different sizes, and we'll see that as we get further along on the build. But that takes us to the next point, which is I want to talk a little bit about the engine bells, and I also want to talk about the reaction control system. But one last thing before I do is I have mocked up the cockpit here. This is what comes with it. So, and there is a bunch of decals which I will put on. I'll paint these seats blue, and I'll try to give this some washes and do a little bit of a job on it. I don't want to ignore it, but you're never going to see it. I mean, come on, you're never going to see it. We're not lighting the interior of this thing, and I know we talk about this all the time, which is finish the model, put it together, put all the pieces together, and be proud of the fact that you know you've put the whole thing together. I get it, but that's not the exercise here. The exercise here is much more about the presentation of the exterior and trying to get this to look like that wonderful Discovery that I see that is presented over at the Smithsonian, because its last mission, it was STS-133, and February the 24th, 2011, it took off, and March the 9th, it came back to Earth, and in cumulative total, it would have spent almost a year in space in cumulative. That's impressive. That old girl had some wear and tear, and they've done their best to sort of maintain it. But, you know, the stresses and strains of putting this sucker into space are pretty huge. And so, you know, I don't mind telling you that it's one of those things where you definitely have to give a tremendous amount of props to the people at NASA who ultimately got this thing prepped and off the ground, and how in the early days they would, you know, paint the main external fuel tank white and it all looked beautiful, and then finally it was like, oh, it's too much trouble, waste of time, let's not do that anymore, and so it became the classic orange that we remember. And so, you know, there were all these different machinations and changes and evolutions to it. And of course, with the tragedy that befell a couple of these missions, an awful lot was learned, not just about O-rings, but also about how critical it was to make sure that none of these tiles fell off. And in fact, if you can recall, in later missions, the part of the mission required the shuttle to actually roll onto its belly, which I thought was pretty cool, so that mission control could take a look at the belly of this thing and see if there were any tiles that were missing. I do think that if tiles were missing, there was a plan to be able to put those back in space. They carried a few with them. How successful that would have been, I don't know. But when you take a hard look at all the different footage there is of these incredible machines, whew, the chunks of stuff that came off these machines, it was huge. I mean, and I'm sure battle damage. I mean, who knows? You know, space debris and what else could potentially hit these things. So, you know, it was still in its infancy, but I do remember when we saw the Enterprise rolled out for the first time and the crew of the Starship Enterprise were there. That was pretty cool. And that was all thanks to Nichelle Nichols, who Uhura was actually NASA's ground representative, and she was the public relations voice for quite a few years. So she was responsible for getting that connection, and that was a pretty good send-off, I thought. But anyway, so what I want to do now is I want to sort of show you some of the aftermarket parts that I've got, and then the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to actually glue this puppy together and start working on the seams, because it's going to all be about the exterior for the most part, and I'll explain in just a second what I mean by that. So let me gingerly get this back over here where it belongs, and I want to talk a little bit about decals for a second, because I think it's important. This is the sheet that comes with the kit. If you've got this kit, you know that. Here it is. Be helpful if I had it the right way for camera, right? So this is the sheet. And when you look at it, there's a couple of things you notice. One is you do have these little decals that are the hinges that can go on. So we may be able to use those. I don't know. The other thing you've got too is you've got a couple of these great little emergency tags. There's a lot of verbiage on the outside of this. We don't get an awful lot of it, but they've given us a couple of things. They've even given us a door, but I think we may have a better one. I'm not sure. And they also give you these wing struts too. This is where the ailerons connect to the wing. And so I'm not sure whether we're going to be doing that by hand or not. The other thing that's a little tragic here, those umbilical connection ports that I pointed out to you in the book, they are not a part on this kit. They are just simply decals, which we can do a lot better than that. I may have found a piece online that we can use. I may have. But then we've still got to cut it out here, which is not the end of the world, because, as I said to you, when you take a really hard, close look at the ship, there was an awful lot of sort of caulking and gauzing and stuffing around cracks to really try and shore up the heat-sensitive nature of this thing. I mean, 3,000 degrees pounding this thing? Come on. I mean, when you think about it, your head explodes. But I wanted to show you this decal set. Now it comes, it is for, now it calls itself the standard tile decals. I want the standard, as opposed to, I don't know. Anyway, it is from a company called Lake County Spaceport. Here they are. You can find them online. I did. And what they will tell you is that there is a history to these decals. They were originally conceived of by one gentleman who passed away, and then he ultimately well, I guess the cause was picked up by another gentleman. Forgive me, I don't have all that set up here, so I'm not prepared to talk about it. But if you go to Lake County Spaceport, you can read all about the decals, and there's some wonderful literature here, and a lot of it was Ed Bisconti. Ed Bisconti was the original designer of these decals. I apologize. That's not cool. But anyway, it was Ed Bisconti who was the original designer. He passed away, and in his legacy, they continued putting these out, and I'm sure glad they did. There's a layout set here for you. You can see to show you where everything goes. And that is greatly appreciated. And away you go. So what you get is you get these really handsome looking detailed sets. Now this is referred to as the alternate aft tile section, and you do get a couple of test pieces as well. This is referred to, for instance, as a test piece, but it is a modification set for the monogram kit. We're not going to hopefully need this because we're not using the monogram kit. And then this is referred to as test paper, which is to allow you to essentially cut them out and test fit them before you use the originals. But they are pretty darn good. Now, I'm not sure we're going to be using these, and I'll explain to you why in just a minute. But I did want to show you all of this because I think it's impressive. So here is the sheet that also includes the door. Now you can see. Why don't I get it on camera? Thank you. Here's the door. Sorry, guys. But now you can see this is slightly different than the decal sheet that comes with this. Let me juxtapose them for you. Here is the decal sheet. Now, interestingly enough, you get all this tile detail from the Lake County Spaceport kit, or I should say sheets, and you don't have any of that here. It's just black. So that was sort of disappointing. But nevertheless, we will be using some of those decals, I suspect. The window decals. Now, curiously enough, up close, they kind of look like photos, which I don't know if is good news or bad news. But I can tell you that these window scales are identical to the Revell scale. So we may be in good shape there. I don't know. We're going to take a look. These are the undercarriage. These are the undercarriage decals, and obviously broken because otherwise it would be too wieldy to put on. But the detail is extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary, and it will really make a huge difference. And one of the things, oh, and you get a second. You get a second door, which is really appreciated. Hatch, I should say. Door. Give me a break. But anyway, that is the aftermarket decal situation that I wanted to share with you because I think it's going to make, well, I know it will make a huge difference to this ship. And when they are on and dry and sealed, I'm going to be using some oil paints on them. I'm going to be using some of my Aptilong 502s to create some streaking and to really get some of that detail out. The reason why I like the oils on the decals is because they'll take several days to dry, and it'll be easy for me to manipulate the paint and move it around and get it exactly where I want it. So that's why I'm pretty excited about using the Aptilongs on this particular project. Now, let me show you a couple of the aftermarket parts that I've picked up. The first one I want to show you is the forward reaction control system. So let's take a look at that. Here it is. This is from a company called Updraft Models. I'll get you close here so you can see, in case you're interested. There it is, Updraft Models. I found them online. Terrific company to do business with, and they get out your product right away. And so I appreciate that. Comes very well packed. We get this instruction booklet here, and if I open this up for you, It shows you exactly where it goes. Now, what we get is we get a cutting template, and we get the actual piece itself. Now, let me tell you why this is pretty genius. Is because the fact of the matter is the reaction control portion of the nose is a separate piece. So when you look at the actual shuttle, you can see where that system was dropped into the nose, and it's got the gauze, the asbestos gauze around it to sort of really nudge it down and hold it in place. But that will give us this additional authentic, a really authentic look to this space shuttle, because my goodness, it's all there, right? So that's pretty incredible. Okay, so I'm trying to be conscious of time here. I apologize. I know we're at 35 minutes. I don't like to go, to an hour. I really don't, because you all fast forward through them anyway. But hopefully you'll find the parts that make sense. But anyway, here's the template. Here that is. And it's pretty cool. You align these notches to the seam lines. And then you actually trace this. It's very cool. You trace the edge of the template. It's very clear. The instructions are very clear. And you cut around those trace lines. So you get that template. And then when you're done with the template, here's your piece. Look at this. Extraordinary. It's the detail on this is absolutely ridiculous. I got a little bit of, I think got a little bit of flash there. That's cool. It's all good. That's all fine. We'll clean that up. But these reaction controls are perfect. And now, one of the things I did think about was adding my brass pipe in here and laying this down at an angle. And I may still do that just to add that kind of detail. But I do not think we're going to need to, because this is beautifully done. It's beautifully done. It is the finest PLA I have seen. It's not resin. I believe it's PLA. Now, if I'm mistaken, I apologize, but I believe it's PLA. But trust me when I tell you, the detail on this is absolutely extraordinary. Extraordinary. And we're going to be able to obviously put our decals on some of this, do some dry brushing, but wow, is this going to make a difference? It's going to make a huge difference. So I'm thrilled we have that piece. So that's the first upgrade that I'm doing to this shuttle. The second upgrade is the main engines. And when I show you these main engines, you're going to go, yeah, I get that. So what I did was I built an engine. I built an engine from the kit to show you. Here it is. This is the kit part. And the seam line happily lives under this hose, which is appreciated. So when you look inside, you've got some work to do in terms of cleaning up those seams, because you shouldn't be able to see anything, and there is a little bit of cleanup to do, but that's what you get. Okay, not terrible. I've seen worse. However, look at this. This is the aftermarket part. Holy cow. Absolutely beautiful. Perfect on the inside. No seams. No seams on the outside. But my God, look at the detail. Look at the detail. Absolutely extraordinary. I mean, we've got a little bit to clean up here, just in terms of now these are resin printed, obviously. Note the caps to the bells themselves, beautiful. Note the hoses, how they bend and turn, and every single one of these joins and notches that are supposed to be there. These are all gunked up, and each one of these connection points is slightly thicker and is a different color. And look how they die into the bell here. Look at that. Extraordinary. As opposed to this. So that is why I went for the aftermarket bells, because I think it's absolutely worth it. Those are our cones. So we've got our forward reaction control nose that we're going to install. We've got our main engines we're going to put in, and we've got our decals. We've got some modifications we're working on. I've started working on these. I get into the weeds on these things on my Instagram account at Spruver, so you could see sort of the before and after. But I wanted to show you what I've been working on here because it's a lot of fun. So this is one of the rear wheels, and what I'm doing, as you can see, is now I haven't cleaned up this is my first coat of rubber, and I've not cleaned anything up yet, so I apologize, and nothing's been finished or washed. But anyway, I wanted to show you I've been adding my wires and appropriately painting the connection joints as I see them on Discovery, and I'm using lead wire for some of the other points. So that's what I'm working on, and I think it's a this backside would have been what it looked like prior to me starting to add my details. But that's sort of the level of detail that I'm trying to affect here. So anyway, as I said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get this the basic shape of the shuttle all glued together, and one of the keys there is going to be making sure that I don't have any steps, right? I got to make sure that this is glued as perfectly as possible. And then I'm going to be incredibly lucky because the top of the shuttle has blankets on it. So that seam is going to disappear, and that's a long, hard seam. So we're going to be fine there. I did want to show you quickly what I talked about the tape method before I got cut off. I apologize. So let me go back to that quickly. I am doing the tape method, the medical tape cloth method. I'm using two tapes. I'm using a smooth and I'm using a waffle. And the net result of that is this. So let me get you close to it. Here it is. And it's going to be then laid down with a little bit of PVC glue, and I'm going to push it in, and then it's obviously going to get stained and discolored appropriately. But what I wanted to show you, which I think is a lot of fun, and I can do it on this piece, which is going to go on the interior of the nose. But when you lay this down, I'm not going to push down too hard, but it grabs it, and what we're able to do, now I can push this down really hard. I don't want to push it down on here because I have to take it off. But you push it down really super hard, and with some 010 strips. Let me show you these in close-up. These 010 strips, they are going to line up like this under it. They're going to line up like this. Do you see? And they're going to create this wonderful effect that you see on the actual shuttle itself, where the panels come together. And so we'll get that kind of ridge effect. There is a thicker version of that, but I think it'll be too thick. It's a subtle thing we're looking for. And when we push down hard on this cloth, I guarantee you, it's going to find those ridges, and it should look pretty good. So there you go. Oh, one other quick thing. The wheel bay doors, they are thick, but I don't think they're thick enough. I've painted these, just primed them, and you can see the inside of the door is quite thick, but I don't think it's thick enough. I'm going to thicken those up just a little bit so that they really pop, because they're going to be down, obviously. And then the inside is going to get metal tape. And that'll go over there like that. And then once the metal tape is on, what I will be doing is using some very thin strips to run over these that will create the various different panels, okay? And that will create the interior of this, and then we'll obviously dull that down appropriately because it's supposed to be, I believe, aircraft grade aluminum. So there you go. So lots of fun details. It seems kind of overwhelming, and in some level it is. But I'm going to I'm going to get through it, and I hope you stick with me on this journey, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So when we come back for part 2, the shuttle will all be glued together. We'll start priming. I will show you a little bit of how the forward reaction nose was installed. We'll look at that, and we'll start to get going on some of the prep for the insulation blankets, and then away we'll go. I'll also have an update for you on the windows and what I did and what I thought about them and how they're going to look, because they need that thickness to them, right? But anyway, lots to report back on. I am really excited about this build. Guys, thank you for coming on this journey with me. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. It means an awful lot to me. Follow me on Instagram at Spruverse. Drop me a line, spruverse@gmail.com, or just drop a comment below. I'm greatly appreciative to each and every one of you. And as always, I wish all of you, please be well, be safe, build something, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Oh, and before I go, Wally, if you're out there, I love you, man. I hope you're okay. Okay, be well.